I went to a competitive high school in the Bay Area, and back then I had dreams of getting into an elite college and becoming a successful doctor. However, when I didn't get into an Ivy League school, I lost much of my drive to achieve or work hard at anything. What was the point, I thought. Instead, I made my goal in life to be as comfortable as possible, which meant sleeping 9 to 10 hours a day, living a leisurely and comfortable, safe suburban life, avoiding hard work or discomfort as much as possible. I really thought I couldn't function with less than 8 hours of sleep, and waking up before 9 a.m. felt like death. I spent much of my leisure time online surfing the internet, shopping, reading in cafes, and watching movies or listening to music. As a freshman in college, I refused to take any classes earlier than 9:30 a.m., and even then, I missed several classes because I woke up too late. When I became Christian my sophomore year in college, the thought of doing ministry felt so daunting. I had no special talents and was afraid to talk to strangers. I compared myself to my friends at church and felt like I had nothing to offer. I wasn't the loud, charismatic type who could tell funny stories and draw people around me. I was shy and awkward and didn't like talking to new people, couldn't cook, and didn't have much talent in anything. At the same time, my heart was still drawn to the idea of living selfishly where I could do whatever I wanted and enjoy the comforts and luxuries that this world had to offer. However, over the years, God opened my heart to have greater vision for my life. During my junior year, I was given the opportunity to serve as a volunteer in our church's children's ministry. My friend and I co-taught a class of 5th and 6th grade girls, and even though we often didn't know what we were doing, and some of our lessons were pretty cringy, the fact that these kids were looking up to us as teachers and role models and giving us so much trust made me feel such a sense of responsibility. I wanted to be someone who was more loving and reliable, someone who was there for them, someone who was better than I was. My heart also started going out to them, as some of the girls in my class had very difficult backgrounds. Several of them lived in the inner city, and one girl had recently lost her mom. I found myself waking up early on Sundays to help set up for service, staying later for our team meetings, meeting with my friend during the week to prepare for small group times, outings, and sleepovers for the girls. For the first time, I felt the joy of serving God and giving my life to something other than myself, and I steadily took more steps to involve myself in ministry through mission trips and trying to be a loving upperclassman. Those early decisions helped strengthen my faith as bigger challenges arose. After I graduated, I went to law school in San Francisco, and I and other friends from our church who were also in law school committed to reach out to our classmates and treat it as our mission field. It was really tough in such a stressful and competitive environment when I felt like I was just barely staying afloat, but we made friends with our classmates, invited them over for dinner, led seeker small groups, and went through Course 101 with some of them. On my own, I would have been too intimidated to try to reach out to my intelligent and put together classmates, but knowing that my friends and I were doing this together, and knowing that our whole church was supporting us and encouraging us, gave me the courage that I lacked. I also started to share in God's burden for my classmates, as I saw that even though they seemed to have it all on the outside, they were in such spiritual need apart from Christ. As I got to know their stories, one experienced many disappointments and heartbreaks after being in one romantic relationship after another, and another classmate attempted suicide, then suddenly got married and got a divorce less than 2 years later. My heart went out to them. I was reminded of the brokenness of life apart from Christ, and the truth that at the end of their lives, they would face an eternity apart from God. I felt burdened for my classmates and really wanted them to know the gospel. And even if I didn't feel smart or qualified enough, it didn't matter. I felt compelled to, because if I didn't share the gospel with them, who would? Later on, I was given opportunities to help out with outreach to campuses in the SF area, and as I simply said yes, I found myself doing things that my undergrad self would have thought was impossible, like being in charge of food for an event with hundreds of people, and acting in the 4 Freshmen skit in my mid-20s because we didn't have enough students at the time. Ministry was tough, but through it I was learning how to surrender my comfort, my time and agendas to God, and to love people and pray for their salvation. And through that, I experienced the joy of seeing students coming to Christ and taking steps of faith to serve after graduation, even becoming church planters. Years later, I was also given an opportunity to move to a church plant and help out there, lead a home group, then lead a class and start a new group. and now I'm preparing to be sent out to start a new ministry on a new campus. Looking back on how I was as a freshman, I can't believe that I'm living the kind of life I'm living now. I had no vision other than to live selfishly, to maximize my comfort, and couldn't care less about other people. 2 Corinthians 3:4-6 says, "Such is the confidence that we have through Christ toward God. Not that we are sufficient in ourselves to claim anything as coming from us, but our sufficiency is from God, who has made us sufficient to be ministers of a new covenant, not of the letter, but of the Spirit. Indeed, I have found that my sufficiency comes from Christ. There was nothing about me that made me qualified to be a minister of the gospel, but just from being part of the church and saying yes to different opportunities to serve and reach out to others, God changed my heart to grow in love for people and to share in His vision for my life."